Hi, happy Black Friday. Let's take a look at Uncanny X-Men issue 6, written by Gail Simone, drawn by Javier Garrón, and colored by Matthew Wilson. Full spoilers ahead, so you're forewarned. There is a lot packed into this issue, and usually when that happens, some things happens faster than they should. It mostly doesn't bother me apart from one small scene, but we'll get to it later. This issue is a bridge issue. It serves as a aftermath of the previous story arc and a prelude of some kind to the next, which in this case is a crossover with X-Men. As far as the story goes at this point, it is reminiscence of Extinction Agenda. Kind of like how Genosha was going after the mutants. We have the guards of Grey Malkin prison attacking and kidnapping Jubilee as well as Calico. And a twist of events is that Blob, Siren, and Toad are now part of the opposing force, kind of like Havoc in Extinction Agenda. Hi, Future Tyler here. Happy Cyber Monday. I am slightly intrigued as to how they managed to convert the trio of mutants to help them. Toad, I might have believed given what happened to him during the Age of Krakoa, but Blob and Siren, especially after Blob was tortured in the dungeons, something else is at play here. Maybe some sort of mind control from Scurvy. But before we even get there, there is a flashback scene for Becca, which completely threw our theory regarding her out of the window. Her somewhat weird, somewhat naive characterization, I'm not sure what to think about. I also find it very abrupt as to how she changes her attitude. I assume you're referring to how Gambit convinced her and not how Stern Rogue managed to rein her in. Yeah, I agree it is rather abrupt, but given her sometimes not quite grounded perception, I think that is intentional. While it appears that Becca is not related to Sarah or Professor X, there is still the whole goblins witches thing going on, and I think it is related somehow, just not the way we think. Also, what's up with the lemonade in Jacob's household? Death Dream asked for one in this issue, and Becca asked for one in issue 3. Maybe it is very delicious. Maybe. There is also a sweet scene of Kurt saving a kid, and this is twice now in 2 weeks that we get a more balanced reaction from non-mutants regarding mutants. That, in my book, is a thumbs up. Principal Owen flashing the midnight bark. That meant he's a mutant, right? We also get the obligatory, school bully story that is really a foil to examine the baby mutants and their relationships with one another. Ransom is kind of the sensitive one here, and Death Dream is pretty oblivion, which tracks since he's with the dad half the time, I think. Now, talking about the baby mutants, right? There is one bully scene that I do not like. I do not like Man Bun Tommy slapping Jitters in the head in front of Principal Owens and then getting away with it. Like, dude, you have a male student being physical with a female student, and the only reaction is to make sure that Ransom do not react. That is not okay. Agree. And I also find it weird that Tommy is less afraid of the monstrous tentacles calling for his death and more afraid of Ransom's fists. And that was the small scene that I mentioned earlier. That seems really fast because the bullies ran away too quickly, especially after they had landed some punches on Ransom. Anyway, we finally have a not Shogo scene. I'm curious, is Simon not allowed to mention Shogo in the book? Why? Anyway, I'm glad it's there, even though we do not know where he is. The Wolverine scene, though, I'm less into. I'm not sure I buy the PTSD argument, but it is still a little early on that part of the story, so I'm reserving further judgment until a later date. The full-on accent from various characters is a bit much this issue, and definitely takes some getting used to. I mean, I do hear it in my head though, so that's a good thing. And I was wondering when La would come in, given Jitter, Simon has thrown in like a few Singlish, in the mix. If I'm being honest, it is kind of a wrong usage here. I do not want to go into it, and I'm not sure I'm able to articulate how and when to use La without a lengthy discourse, so we will leave it at that. I do appreciate Simone trying though. So I'm very curious as to how Grey Malkin goons are able to operate with like seemingly impunity and under whose authority they are operating with, right? Because so far, depending on the titles, they kind of waver between a clandestine operation and a military opt with perhaps private backing or maybe sanctioned by the US government. I am sure we'll get to know a little bit more in the crossover. Um, Also curious about the purpose of capturing mutants and imprisoning them. Garen's art skewed towards more cartoony compared to Marquez's, and Wilson's color changes to match the art. I'm not sure if the same sort of flat coloring utilized with Marquez's would work with Garen's art, but the colors in this issue is not like overly shaded either. If anything, I think it is brighter, more in the primary color vicinity in terms of the color palette. So as a result, it lends a cheerier feel to the entire issue, except maybe for the flashback scene, which falls back closer to the colors used in the last couple of issues. But it is still somewhat brighter. Some of the elements of the coloring that we enjoyed are also apparent in this one, so it is not like totally different. The watercolor light background, for example, or the neon light flare from Jubilee are pretty similar to the previous issues. The characters may not have like great hair day when Marquez drew them, but the characters' hair are still very varied and distinct. Not only that, all the side characters looks very different. Expressions and body languages are very well rendered, and we get a lot of them in this issue, ranging from surprise to petulant to joy and indifferent, just to name a few. The backgrounds are also chock full of details, such as in the grocery store, outside the barn, and even at the bus stop. It is a welcome change from last issue, sorry, rather sparse background. It is, if it is not apparent yet, we like Garen's art, and Garen is a great choice for the secondary artist on this title. If I have to nitpick, Wolverine might have been a little too white and thickly muscled with like a small head, especially in some panels. This is more of a rant than a random thought, so feel free to skip to the next section. So while I do not usually want to comment on things outside the actual comics itself, the letters page in this issue had me absolutely fuming. The editor in charge of the X line of books high-fiving a fan saying things like, and I quote, during the Krakoan era, there's been a noticeable shift towards a kind of prejudice, exclusionary language in the mutant community. Speaking anti-human slurs and treating humans as less valuable, and words of segregation and hate. I'm honestly flabbergasted. Did the fan actually read the books? Or am I reading books that are from an alternate universe? So it is okay for non-mutants to call mutants gene freak or gene trash, and to exclude them from their community and treat them as less than human, like, capturing them and torturing them in dungeon. If you cannot see how it is a good thing, that a subjugated community wants to empower themselves and remove themselves from a conflict inflicted on them through no fault of their own. If you cannot see that Krakoa was created as a safe space for all mutants, and how it is a celebration of mutanthood, and that Krakoans are simply speaking the language of their oppressor for so long, and that they are just saying, no more of that. If you cannot see that, then I'm sorry to say this, you are a racist. We are not talking about stories here. Like, not every story during the Age of Krakoa is a 5 out of 5. It is okay to dislike stories, issues, or even entire runs. I mean, I hated some runs in the Age of Krakoa. But to cast and frame mutant empowerment as anti-non-mutants, I'm going to say it again. You are a racist. And yes, that includes the person who amended that letter. And that is why we are back to misery porn in X-Books right now. Because the X-Line editor and fans like that, whom basically do not understand what X-Men is about, and to them, watching mutants suffer is the right status quo. No to that. So overall, I enjoyed this issue and rate it a 3.75 out of 5. It is a bridge story that serves as an aftermath of one arc and prelude to the next. While not everything hits the right spot for me, the misses are also not like huge misses. Agree. I also enjoyed Garron's art, even though it is quite different, stylistically speaking, from Marquez's. So check this book out. Just skip the letters page. If you enjoy this, please consider hitting the like and subscribe to this channel. Please share this with your friends and leave a comment below. Thanks, and Tyler out.